This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. This time we did it on purpose. We didn't do a cold open. I just had Javi push the button and get in on it because today we are doing what is hopefully going to be a tradition for the foreseeable future of having a weekly wrap-up show on Friday to talk about everything that happened, in the world of true crime on every Friday, and to do it with my pal Elizabeth Jones from Hillbilly Crime. Elizabeth, welcome back.
Hey, Fish. Thanks for having me. Love to be here.
You and I were doing a little too much jibber jabber, and that's why we're late getting started. But I forgive us. And I'm the judge and jury here, so we're
There we
fine.
go. It's nice to be boss, ain't it?
Sometimes I've been a business owner for so long that it that whole thing where you think when you first start out that you're going to be your own boss, and then you discover that you just have thousands of bosses instead of one boss. That is true.
Yeah.
We we are accountable to those who pay the bills, and that is our dear viewers, right?
That is for sure.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've got the best supporters. Don't you?
Yeah, I do. They're awesome.
Best supporters.
And
I
that's not
love them.
just blowing smoke. That, like, honestly, it feels like a giant extended family in a lot of ways. Especially my
Yeah.
mods. Autumn and
Yeah.
Mooney and Robin are my mods, and that's how I feel. Hey, quick plug for my mods, guys. Go to my website, gavinfish.com, click on support me, and buy my lead mod a coffee because she's rad. And yes, that's a way to do that. What has been going on this week with you?
Oh, I have been knee deep in the Alexi Treviso case. I
Okay,
just went down that rabbit hole.
tell me about it.
So, Alexi Treviso was a young girl in high school. She was 19, though. She was a cheerleader. And, of course, she still lived at home. I guess she was a senior under her mommy and her mommy's roof, and she goes to the hospital one night for back pain, runs to the bathroom and delivers a baby, a full term baby, in the bathroom by herself in the hospital. She wraps this baby in the bottom of a
Oh,
garbage
oh
bag and
no.
twists it up like like
Oh
you was going
no.
to twist up something, and then wraps it underneath the baby and sits it down in the bottom of a garbage can with
No.
so for about 15 minutes. And everybody's knocking on the door trying to get her to come out, trying to get her to come out, and nobody's hearing her. She was completely silent. But so anyway, they go to get a key to come open the door, to unlock the door, because they knew something was wrong. And right as they were getting ready to put the key in the door to open it, she opened it up and walked out and just walked around. Said she was on her period. And there was they said there was blood everywhere. She goes back to the room and sits down, and about 15 minutes later the cleaning crew found the baby, and of course it was gone by then. And they go into back into the room, and they're like, well, we just found a dead baby in the bathroom, and it looks like you tried to hide it, so we had to call the police. And there's so much body cam footage. There's um, so many interviews. And this was in 2023. So it's been a few years now that we've got plenty to work with.
This is what drives a young woman to do that? I don't I mean, there's got to be some level of desperation. What did she know she was pregnant?
She had to have. we've got video where she was cheering. She was a cheerleader, and they did like big competitions. She was a competition cheer, and her belly was way out there, especially compared to what she had always been before, and
Yeah.
compared to what the other little girls were.
This is like the Lake and Snelling case, right? The
Yes,
UK cheerleader who,
very.
but it makes me wonder if there's some mental health component of these where they might be in denial. They may have convinced themselves that, you know what, in my day job, this was maybe 2 years ago. I was assigned to write an article about a local kid to Western Pennsylvania who was going to school in the state of Hawaii, and he was in his or his off campus like rental house in the late hours of the night, and he hears kind of a commotion out of his window, and he just opens the window and he witnesses. In this case, it was a woman who was obviously in the throes of substance abuse and addiction, but he watches her deliver a baby in front of his house, scoop the baby up, open his trash can that was out there for the garbage to be picked up that night or early the next morning, place the baby in the top and close it and walk away. He runs down calling 911 and he saved the baby. Right. So like there's this is a thing that happens. But I don't understand. I mean, there must be just some desperation. I don't get it.
I don't know if there's like not a connection. I know that women have a chemical that they release called oxytocin, I guess. I don't know anything about it. I'm just kind of trying to put something together in my mind. I just wonder if maybe they have a lack of that. To a detrimental level, because I mean we see stronger motherly instincts in animals, you
Yeah.
know we really do.
Yeah.
It's awful.
That's
And I remember when I was a young mom, I was 19, with my first child, and something that I had to learn the hard way was after I had that baby, I wasn't the baby no more. My mom did not rub my head in her lap anymore. The baby got all that attention.
mm,
Whereas before I had that baby, I was always the baby. Even at 19, I
yeah.
was still her baby. And today I ran across a lady, um, 38 years old, with her first child. 38 with
Yeah.
her first child. And she even made the comment today. She said, whenever, before I had the baby, I could never get my mom over here. She said, but now that I've had the baby, she's over here all the time. She said, and this struck me so. As she said, and I'm having to remind her, hey, this is my baby. I'm your baby. And I said, buddy, ain't you getting a dose of reality? You ain't
Yeah.
the baby no more. And I think, I wonder if some women have a really hard time with that disconnect.
That
I don't know. It's
well, it's
the
a change in the life. It's a change of roles.
Yeah, and identity.
Yeah, and when you're so young, you know, um, I think, okay, going back to the olden days where, like, you know, my parents were teenagers when they got married and started their family, right? That
Yeah,
and that was typical. That wasn't like
right,
abnormal. Oh, we just
right.
graduated from high school. You're about to head off to war, so we probably ought to get married. And while dad's off at training, mom's pregnant. You know, it was like one of those things. And like out of the four grandparent sets of grandparents in my marriage, that's the same story with three of them. Right.
Yeah.
So like that's just like the normal thing, right? I
Right.
don't think that in today's age where we're putting off parenthood, I don't know that we're preparing ourselves at that age so that when you are 18, 19, I don't know that you are as prepared as generations before you. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. In fact, I prefer it the way it is now. But but I wonder about that. And I posted on an article on CrimeCod this week about Lindsay Clancy, who like she strangled, or she's charged with strangling
Oh,
to death three children. Right.
yes.
The main thing that happened this week was they dropped the strangulation charges because murder covers it, right?
Mhm. Yep.
But and a lot of the people in the comments are talking about postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, and
Mhm.
there are major changes in a woman's body during and after pregnancy for sure.
Absolutely. And, every woman goes through it differently. Some women really, really have a hard time with it, and others, don't. So, you know,
Yeah,
I, I learned, I know you are not a woman, but just for my women out there, I learned that breastfeeding did wonders for a woman trying to get back, her body, because it bonds you with the baby, number one. But it also, I don't even know what it does physically, but it does something to a woman's body and mental, emotional,
yeah.
everything.
I,
It's
I
just amazing.
when we were having our kids, and we have a wide spread because we had like a 10-year gap between child number three and child number four, and we have five. But let's say the first round of children, people think that we're a blended family because we've got this wide gap, right? But no, it's just because we're stupid. But no, my wife would have those conversations with my mom because my mom had children at a time where doctors were advising against breastfeeding. You got to give
Oh,
formula because it's all of the vital nutrients scientifically formulated to be the best for your baby. And so for my mom, she didn't get a lot of that because she was told that that was the wrong thing to do.
wow. Ain't that crazy?
It is
That
crazy.
doctors, they call that liquid gold because it's
Yeah.
so much, that colostrum or whatever it's called. It's got so much in it that is for your immune system. And I mean, I ain't proud of this or nothing, but my mom says that she didn't wing me till I was 5 years old. So, needless to say, I don't get sick very much.
Well, in some cultures, I mean, like we're really going off on a tangent here, but in some, like I remember when I lived in Argentina, it was not uncommon for a 10-year-old child to lift up his mom's shirt. To,
Yeah,
yeah, just
I
kind of a
reckon
normal
I
thing. As like a young American male, I'd be like, oh,
ah, yeah, I know, right?
it took me a while to get used to that as part of the culture.
She said I had to beat you off with a
That
stick.
is funny. That is funny. Well, man, that case. So you've got a lot of footage. You're going deep into that,
Hmm.
man.
Yeah, well, it's easy to work with when you got more body cam
Yeah.
footage, stuff like
Well,
that.
that's what made the Kevin Mullins slash Mickey Stein's case, I think, so compelling to so many. I think that's the reason it went national is because the video started coming out really early,
Yeah.
and once we in the media have something to show our audience, it's something to really sink your teeth into. Then it becomes really What is that? It just I can't even think of the adjective that I'm looking for here. It's just better for the viewers.
Well,
I
it's
hope.
more interesting. It captures their
Yeah,
attention
it's
more.
captivating. Yeah,
hmm
yeah,
hmm
that's right.
And I have turned into a Reels creator.
Yeah, yes, you have. That is true. You're guys. Just so you know, Elizabeth Jones is responsible for the growth of my Facebook page, which has gone from like
Mm-mm.
3,000 to coming up on 6,000 followers, and it's because she taught me so much. One, you're helping with my reels, and two, you just taught me how to make content for Facebook, and it's been kind of fun.
It's all
We're
you, my friend.
we're
It's
having
all
fun.
I'm having the time of my life. I'm working myself silly, like I mean, I fall asleep at my desk and work till 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, and I get a few hours sleep, and then I'm right back up doing it again. But I love it. This is what I mean. I wouldn't do nothing else. I
It's a
love
fun
it.
job. It's a fun job for sure.
I don't
Have
have a spouse either. You have a spouse. I don't have a spouse. I have two teenage boys, and they're not trying to be with their mom right now either. They're
Plus, let's be honest, teenage boys smell. Who wants to hang out with a couple of teenage boys?
as long as we're at the ball field, that's the only. I'll be there any day.
Oh,
But
dude, so
that's all
funny.
I do is work, and I'm building a legacy, my
Yeah,
legacy.
yeah, you're doing good work. Hey, have you been following the any more of the Ohio 16 case this past week?
Yes, yes. We
Here's
gotta.
something that I don't understand. I checked on it just like an hour ago. Why
Mhm.
is there an application for a gag order on one of the cases, G2, but not on any of the others?
Well, what's a non-dissemination order?
A non-dissemination versus a gag order, I think it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so that's what we did our show on last night was Christina. There was a her lawyer put a
Oh
motion
yeah.
in for a non-dissemination, and that's what I thought it was the gag order. And so I thought that is where the gag order talk had originated from
Oh. Well,
was
the
from
first
that.
time I saw it was on G2's case. Let me open up Christina's case here real quick
Yeah,
and see
please.
what I can see here, and I'll share the screen as soon as I got it up. So I just checked this, but you know what? You know how it is.
Yeah.
I'm like cross-eyed most of the time these days.
Me too. You see, I got my glasses, so they're my crooked glasses. I had them in my purse, and I guess they got a little
Oh,
crooked.
so this is a dissemination for non-dissemination order. Okay, so let's.
See, what is that? Is that a gag order?
Yeah, and this is from yesterday, basically. So let's read it. It's motion for non-dissemination order. To ensure the integrity of the judicial process and protect defendants' right to a fair and impartial trial by an untainted jury pool, defendant through undersigned counsel hereby requests this court issue an order restricting the dissemination of information by the parties in this matter, subject to
Gag order.
reasonable limitations and in accordance with applicable legal authority. Defendant requests this court issue the order prohibiting the parties' release of information regarding the merits, facts, evidence, materials, and discovery, or information otherwise collected by the parties in preparation for the trial, or any opinion regarding the character, reputation, or credibility of the defendant, witnesses, or alleged victims to the public, the media, or any person for the purpose of public dissemination. A proposed order is provided. I'm sure it'll be right there. Or no, it's a proposed order is not there. But yeah, that is basically a motion for a gag order. Well, I think the gag order specifically has to do with talking to the media. Non-dissemination, that just appears to be like, hey, we're putting the kibosh in everything. Please just Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, when I looked at the case details, I I completely missed that. I remember the notice of appearance of co-counsel, but I didn't see the motion for dissemination. So is that the case in the others as well? Let me look at Elizabeth's and Gary the Elder as well. Let me look at
Well,
these.
they've got different attorneys,
Yeah.
but
So nothing on Elizabeth's. For Gary the Elder, nothing there. So far it is just Christina's motion for non-dissemination. I don't see an order in there, but in G2's there is an order. There's like a proposed order filed, and when I read that at first I was like, well, it's a proposed order, but then it is signed by the judge. So I think that makes it an order.
yeah, yeah. And so this is granting or an order for the gag order.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The motion for the order, here's the gag order. It was, and basically they're just like, hey, so the Attorney General of the state of Ohio is telling people that these people are pure evil, and saying that if they
Yeah.
hadn't been there that day, then there may have been some that are perished. I think it was the sheriff that said that. How about we on that? And I'm supportive of that.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely. I think that they've really gotten carried away with all of this. Now, that's not to say that, that house was not absolutely awful. And I got my hands on some even worse video last night. We saw some
Yeah.
of it. Um, I'm real weary about the copyright stuff with that video. So I put it over on my Patreon. So
Mm.
if anybody wanted to go over to my Patreon, they can find it over there if they want to see it. But the video, two boys had broke in, I guess, and they went in and they, I guess, this one was just much more. Um, you could tell it was just really, really bad.
You could tell how bad it
He
was.
he either had his shirt over his nose like that, or he had his hand over his nose. You could tell, and they were getting in and getting out as quickly as possible because of the smell. Um, it was so bad, and one of the things that I kept saying was, people don't want to live in that. Like, do you think Elizabeth wanted to be there? Do
Well,
you think she wanted to live in that house?
and that's why I keep thinking that this is an active drug addiction. People have said in the comments, Gavin, the toxicology is back. There were no drugs in their body, and like, well, I can't find anything on toxicology. That just sounds like a rumor to me. I don't know it one way or the other, but
Right.
exactly who wants to live that way? There's got to be a
Nobody.
reason for it.
Well, something that I had not heard yet until I was working on your reels was that he was considered the golden boy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, and I'd already kind of was going down this road anyway. But I feel like grandma and grandpa are aging. So they start diminishing they're getting diminished capacity
Mm.
in the mental part. And maybe where grandma used to keep the house clean, and grandma was probably the only one that kept the house clean, because Elizabeth's brother said he had met these people when she first moved in with them, and that they were clean people. He said, never would I have, left my sister with these people if they'd lived that way. He said they did not live that way before. And their aunt or their niece came out and said that she just could not see her aunt and uncle neglecting these children to this level. So I think that this is a classic case of a family that the grandparents were the ones that kept everything together. And as they got older and got to where they couldn't do and couldn't do and couldn't do, you got this lazy POS of a son, that didn't never do nothing, hasn't never done nothing. And he, unfortunately, looks to be the one that inherited all of the responsibility. But I think that we've also got a great deal of mental disability going on here with the
Sure.
son. I don't think that the son's all there. I
But
think
what
the
about
son
Elizabeth? Do you think Elizabeth is there?
I don't not definitely not now, but at 13 years old, she was just trying to get out of a home where she was being beat on by a dad. And
Yeah.
if she was pregnant at 13, God only knows what kind of childhood she had. You don't know if she had been sexually abused as a child or not. I mean,
Yeah.
it sure looks to me like she had been, you know? And so I think that this is just one of those cases that just got, it was bad and it just kept getting worse. And I think it just got out of hand and nobody noticed.
Well,
No.
here's the thing that bothers me on this that we learned yesterday on the or day before yesterday on the case is that there were concerns in another county over the children being truant from school. And
Ah.
and there were charges that were filed. But when they went to serve those charges, they had left the house. And so
Mm.
because they couldn't find them, everything was dismissed. And that just blows my mind because
This.
you're telling me like I can just go from this is reminding me. Okay, there was a guy in the state of Nevada called Joe Conforti. Joe Conforti was a prostitution like mobster. Okay.
Mm.
And he figured out, this was back in the 60s, he figured out that if he bought a piece of land that straddled 4 counties, that he could park a trailer in one county on the land and he could run girls in that trailer until he started getting heat from that county. And then he could hitch up the truck, pull it 100 feet that way across the county line, and there was nothing they could do over here, and they would forget about it. And then and he literally just pulled a trailer in a circle for years, illegally running a prostitution ring in northern Nevada. This is famous Washoe County, Reno area.
Mm.
So this case, like, okay, so you got, I think they said well, it was multiple children that
Mm.
are not going to school. We are aware of them. The truancy officer is aware of them. They go through the process of filing charges. They go to serve those charges, and the family is gone. Okay, so a certain amount of time passes, and the county goes, "Well, that's all we can do. Rip these up. We're done." But they were still in the state of Ohio. They weren't very far away.
And
People knew is what I'm saying. People
oh
knew.
Oh,
There's
yeah. And each time she had babies in the hospital, where's those mandated reporters? Because I know that whenever I had my children, I wasn't getting out the front door without a car seat.
hmm
They were so critical because, especially at that time, they were looking for mothers who were testing positive for drugs.
yeah.
Especially now, I'd say it's even worse. But back then, they were really looking for anything that you did wrong, honey. At the hospital I was in, they were just like right over your shoulder. At least that's how I felt.
Well, and
Um,
I remember being simultaneously offended and grateful the first time I was separated from my wife because they wanted to ask her if I was abusive.
Oh.
Right? It's just like it was like standard hospital procedure. Yeah, Mr.
Uh-huh.
Fish, come over here. We've got some stuff for you to sign. My wife's in active labor. It won't take long. She'll be fine. No, they just wanted me out of the room. And then when I got back to the room, Kimberly was like, I cannot believe the questions that they were asking me about this. I just want to have, I'm in active labor. Why am I having to answer these questions? And like, I don't know. I was simultaneously offended. In the moment, I was offended. And after the fact, I was like, okay, well, they're looking out for women. So that's good. Right.
Yeah.
So where did all that, what happened there with all of her kids? You're right. Plus,
Right.
dude, the smell of that house doesn't just stay on that house. Right. If
They would
she's,
have smelled her in labor when she came in there with babies.
yes.
And her body, her hygiene. Each time she had one of them babies, they would have seen that. They would have smelled it.
Yeah.
So we can't get no kind of medical records, but I would sure love to be able to see what them doctors wrote in their notes, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or the nurses.
Yeah. And then apparently ignored later on when they couldn't do anything. I mean, is this a matter? I hate this, but the complaint is always there aren't enough resources.
Mm-hmm.
So just throw a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of money at it. But then we run into the corruption stuff that you've seen down in Letcher County,
Oh yeah.
right? That's just, oh, we're going to throw a bunch of money at something and then it becomes abused and everything too. So I don't know
Yeah,
what to do about that.
and you don't have competent people in positions. It seems like to me every place is so full of nepotism. They hire people that are just not competent and qualified for the jobs, and you've also got some industries, I'm sure, that just has a lack of trained professionals. But I really think that competence is a big thing. I think that there's no accountability for our hiring decisions. I don't think that we spend enough time actually looking at candidates and like law enforcement. Why are we hiring people that have personalities, that you can tell if you give this person power, they're going to abuse it.
Yeah.
But those are the first ones that get the job.
No, in the county that I live in, they hire corrections officers for the county jail from the very pool of people that they are jailing. Like they grew up together. They're in the same schools, the same neighborhoods. They just don't have quite a criminal record yet, is the way it feels a lot of times. Not everybody, but and it's because of the pay. Like, and I don't know if do you guys have Sheets down where you are, the gas station brand? Probably not, right? Okay, so the equivalent of like Bucky's for
Yeah.
us is Sheets, but it's a different shtick. It's not just gargantuan sizeness. It's like just awesomeness.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
like it's awesome. Like it's so tempting to go to Sheets and get a burger because it's delicious. And
Yeah.
like it's funny because we're talking about a gas station, but our finest food can be found at the gas station. But anyway,
It
um,
is.
you can make more money working at the gas station than you can working for the county at the county jail, and not a
Yeah.
little more. You can make a
Yeah.
lot more. So
Yeah.
you're going to attract candidates who can't get a job at the gas station.
And if they're growing up with those same people, you think there's not going to be a problem with
Oh
contraband.
my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, come on. And you got you women that you're hiring, sleeping with the inmates,
Hmm.
and vice versa. You got men staff that mess with the females.
Yep.
You know, but it's culture.
Yeah.
It's
Well, it certainly failed these 16 children.
Yes. And grandma and grandpa, the medical problems that they've had. I mean, they're lucky they're alive, probably, but you wonder what kind of stuff that they've needed medicine for. You know,
Yeah.
every one of them, even these kids. What kind of issues are we dealing with where they needed medicine? And nobody's went to a doctor. I'm sure nobody's got any insurance. Uh, I don't think I've not seen anywhere where they've found that they've had any kind of assistance. Have you?
The only indication there was Bill Archer, the prosecuting attorney, in his press conference said that the elder siders, there was an indication that they had some sort of public assistance, but
Mm.
none of, according to what he said, I think he said it was qualified what he said. From my understanding, it's only the grandparents that have gotten assistance. So who knows if his
So
information
that
is complete?
so that would probably mean their POS son has been living off of their Social Security,
Probably.
trying to raise this whole family. And it doesn't have to be drugs. It could be gambling. It
Yep.
could be smacks. He
Yeah.
just seems we've not heard him like really talk much, but in that hearing, in his or his arraignment, whenever the judge spoke to him, I recognized that he understood what was happening. He understood his bond. He understood that he was giving a very high bond. He was kind of um, the mediator between the judge and his dad, because his dad couldn't hear, and so he don't have no hearing aid, and so at home he's probably um,
Yeah.
I'd say they're all neglected, every single one of them. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, jail doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing either. At least it got them out of that house. They took them all to, whether, even though it's the jail, they still took them to a facility where they could be showered, where they could assess their
Put into clean
medical,
clothing. They probably haven't had clean clothing on their backs forever.
right? And assess what kind of things that they're dealing with, whether it's, and their lawyers are going to do the best for them. I think G1's attorney has put in that for his competence already.
Yeah.
Uh, and what was it? They've asked for competence and
And
some
insanity.
insanity.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I knew it as soon as I saw his face.
It's going to be tough though because this wasn't a crime that happened in a day or a week, right? This is
It can be
something that was prolonged.
I hate that it's a crime. I just hate that it's a crime.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't think there was any intent. I don't think any of these people had any intent whatsoever to put those kids in any danger. I think you're dealing with low IQ. I think you're dealing with disability. Now, unless they come out and show us that this guy's got some kind of perv history and that he's a molester and, all this stuff on him, and even then, that's not the rest of them. Grandma and grandpa don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
possible.
I
I
think they're just going in whatever room somebody guides them to.
hmm. I don't know. I don't know. The First of all, low intelligence is a thing for sure, right? There, and sometimes it's like, how horrible is this? I'm gonna be flogged for this. Just don't flog me hard, okay? But like out where I live, you can tell like members of the same family by just how stupid they behave. You don't even have to tell me a last name a lot of times. Like, oh, him? Yeah, I know exactly who he belongs to, right? That's just like they're so dumb.
Yeah.
and it's not their fault. Like they were just
They're
born
born
dumb.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a culture. I'm telling you, I keep using that word, and I don't think people realize exactly what I mean by it. And that's it. It's a group. It's not just a one person, it's a group. It's a whole community of people, whether it's a small community or a big community.
No,
A
this is
culture is two or three people.
this is so funny because like okay, um the older I get and the more exposed I become to stuff like the Ohio 16 case, the more I realize just how blessed I was to
Yes.
grow up when I did, where I did, and with whom, right?
Yes.
With my parents and my brothers and sisters, my neighborhood, my teachers, everything,
Mhm.
right? So in the neighborhood that I existed in my childhood, right? Which and it was the 80s, so it was large. I was pretty much a free range kid, right? But it was still relatively small. We're talking about a neighborhood, right? Maybe a mile square that I had free range over. Well, there's probably like out of the 5,000 people that I like was around, there were two or three they're slow, they're slow, but they're dude out here in Appalachia.
There's a
You
whole
get
lot
up in some of these hollers and you're just like, what happened? Like, what happened?
Well, it's priority. See that you've got. Think about the culture here about no teeth.
Yeah,
You didn't have priority on oral hygiene. Other places in the country, they really actually brush their teeth 3 times a day. It's not just a myth or something that they
the
say.
floss. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't, even though, we kinda know that that's a thing, it's not instilled in children. If your personality is formed by the time you're 6 years old, how were you raised? Did your mother clean, every day? Did she wash the dishes and keep her kitchen clean? And, did she do those things? And did she make you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Did she make you learn how to do it? And did you have chores to where you were forced to also develop these skills and this culture?
Yeah.
It's a behavior.
No,
And if nobody's taught you how to do that, if nobody's taught you how to sweep and mop a floor, every Saturday,
brush your
that you're
teeth, floss, comb your hair.
how do we expect people to do it if they've never done it?
No, it sometimes I feel like I'm living near Idiocracy. I don't know if you ever saw Idiocracy. It's the best movie ever. Have you seen Idiocracy?
I don't think I have.
Okay, it is the best movie ever, but here's the plot, okay? The plot is this dude volunteers to be frozen for like a week in this army thing where he's going to be put to sleep and frozen. And then he accidentally is forgotten about, and 500 years later he thaws, okay? And he comes out into a new society. And what has happened over this society is that all of the people who were high intelligence were waiting to have children because their careers were so important and stuff like that. But by the time that they were ready to have families, they could no longer have families. Meanwhile, up out in the trailer parks and in the hollers with people with low IQ, they're having babies like rabbits. And so over 500 years, only stupid people have had children. So he comes and he's like, he's not even a smart person from his time, but in this time, he is brilliant, right? It is a great movie. And sometimes I'm like in public meetings and I'm just like, I'm in idiocracy right now. I'm not even that smart, but did you hear what they just said? Oh,
I've made that face many times.
Oh, so funny.
Yes,
Okay, but
yeah.
let me go back to your comment because what you said is that you're sad that it's a crime, or that's a paraphrasing. I think that's what you said, if I remember correctly. But what are you supposed to do if this isn't a crime? If it's just low IQ and bad culture and bad choices and mom and dad who were once in charge and in control of their faculties have now like lost them. If it's just that, but there are still 16 victims here.
Hmm. Well, I
So,
think that they're going to have to, grandma and grandpa should probably go to a nursing home, uh, more than likely, you know. This is just me thinking what, the kids see how mom is, if mom was able, with some sort of assistance, to care for these kids. I don't think mom needs to go to prison for what did you say, 197 years
I
or
think it was
something like
12 years
that?
per count, something like that. So
And
12
you
times
said
16?
consecutive. If
Yeah.
they were
If they were
consecutive,
consecutive, yeah.
but I just don't. I mean, these kids are gonna love their mommy probably.
Hmm.
She's probably all they've got, or, probably all they, but I don't know. Maybe they'll find out that she was not, but I
Well,
doubt it because they were the first things on her mind. When she talked to her lawyer, they were the first things she asked
yeah,
about.
I discounted that when I read that. I completely discounted it, but in light of how you're framing this, I think that maybe I need to reconsider that part. It
Because
could
I
be
would
that,
say jail ain't fun, and that would be the first thing on my mouth. Get me the hell out of here.
yeah.
Tell them
Mm,
kids later. Get me out of here. So, she's better than I am on that.
yeah. Oh, I have to put some thought into that. This whole case just that the rub on all of this is that there are 16 victims. Right now,
Yeah.
if there were just four like complete and utter dipshits living in filth, that live in filth, do you? But when we've got 16
Yeah.
victims,
No, 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 no. These kids need structure. They've not been to school. They've not had any kind of socialization. These poor kids are going to be traumatized for the rest of their life. They'll be known as the Ohio 16.
yeah,
You know, um, I think that if they can try and keep their family together, that would be the best thing for those kids. But you've also got to think about the family, the extended family. They're not going to have the resources to put all those kids in a foster home, in one foster home. So if they have to break those kids up, they're gonna have to. There's just, I don't see any home taking all 16
you know
of
what's
them.
funny is Kimberly and I talk about this stuff all the time. Not all the time. We used to talk about it a lot, but we talk about it with some frequency. We could take 16 children and have room for them and be comfortable. And I mean, kids would be sharing rooms, but it wouldn't be 16 in a room, right? It'd be a few in a room here, a few in a room there, and it would and we could completely and we could take care of 16 kids because my wife is like I couldn't, but with Kimberly, yeah, because I'm married to Superwoman, right? But
Hmm.
I don't want to take on the family because
Hmm.
when you take in 16 children, you're taking in all that baggage, and maybe that makes me the worst person in the world, but
No, I don't.
it's like I what was the name? There's a famous golfer who like he and his wife adopted and fostered something like 30 kids, and it was because he's like, because we've been blessed, because I've done well in golf, and I can't remember which one that was, but like they wanted to adopt every single one of them, but they were successfully able to finish the adoptions of a lot of them, and the rest of them they still consider their kids, and the kids consider them mom and dad. Right? They're just like
Yeah.
we are blessed. We've got the room in our hearts, but heaven love them because they had to deal with everything else that came with
Well,
those each circumstance.
you also will be giving up your entire life, because when would you ever be able to go to work? When would you ever have time for your own children? When would you ever have time to do anything? You wouldn't. You would have, it would be the only people that will take these kids in will be is if they're paid, like foster families are, you
Yeah,
know or that's what I was going to say. The extended family that they have, they were never around anyway. It's not like any of them ever came and checked on any of them kids for
right.
their entire life. So I'd be real hesitant to stick any of these kids with any of the family just because of that.
Yeah,
You
though
just.
you know that that's what their preference will be. It's first kin, then next of kin, right? It
Mm-hmm,
always is.
mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, hey, if some of them would agree to take them, that probably would be the best thing, because like I said, who's going to take them? Who would want to? Who
Yeah,
would want to give up their life for that, for somebody that they don't even know?
there are special people, man. There are some
Um,
special people out there. I am not one of them. I I
and
just
it,
think about it. I think about the cost, like because okay, we have
well,
two minor children, and if we brought on other children, what how does that affect the children that we currently have responsibility for? And
yeah.
if it's just bringing a child into the family, I'm all for it. But there's just so much baggage. It takes
And
a special person.
responsibility. And responsibility. I have kids that aren't mine here at my house all the time. But I'm not taking on that responsibility as their parent.
Yeah,
They still have a home that they can go to. Um, but, because you're responsible for anything that happens to them, you're
yeah,
responsible for anything that they do. Just
yeah,
that's a lot. It's a lot. It is a lot. And you just think about that. If nobody else could really do it very easily, you think G2 was going to be successful in this? I mean, come on. I just think that that's unrealistic expectations. Something, this family needed help. They
yeah.
needed assistance. I just don't see criminal intent here with anything so far. So far.
Speaking of which, tell people what your bona fides are on that. You have 2 degrees in criminal justice, right?
Yeah, I have well, I have two associate's degrees. One is a law enforcement degree, and then my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and then a master's degree in justice policy and leadership. Yeah, I always have to put that leadership on there. Used to, I was like, oh, well, I don't have to say that. It's just too much. It's too long. It just doesn't sound good. It's just too much. But, the more that I do this job, and the more I realize that leadership is a very important aspect. Our leaders um, are failing because of a
Yeah.
lack of education. Well, I mean, I could just go on and on and on and why, but
I sometimes
leadership is very important.
I had a meeting I don't know, several weeks ago I've been doing this series on drug addiction in our area and trying to come at it from different ways. You know, how should we understand it as family members and friends, and how are schools dealing with family issues there is a when there's an obvious need, and what's happening in government. And anyway, I was talking with our elected leaders in my area, along with the leaders of the departments of like human services and stuff like that. And I walked away extremely impressed by the social workers that were on the ground doing the best that they could in what is a very difficult situation. The leadership, the I guess the hired social worker leaders, I was really impressed with. Now, the elected leaders, who are people that I like, who I even respect, I think they're completely out of their depth. Like, I think they're complete, like, as I would be had I run there and won that seat, right? I
Yeah.
think they're just completely not up for the task.
Yep. Yep. I think we're seeing that all over the place. It's not something that's rare. I think because um there our elections are run more like popularity contests
Yeah,
instead of job interviews.
yeah, that's exactly right. Even at the local level,
Mm.
that's
Especially at the local level.
yeah, that's the way it is. Hey, have you heard about this Nolan Wells situation, the 18-year-old kid?
Tell me about it. I've seen it. I just didn't have enough time to read it.
Yeah, so Nolan Wells was he was like a junior college freshman. He graduated high school in 2025. He was playing football for the local JUCO, and 18 years old on July 4th, living in Mississippi. There's the series of barrier islands that are basically national parks or state parks, and you can get there by boat, and people will go out on holidays and they will have parties on these islands, right? It's
Mhm.
this almost Caribbean kind of kind of
Lifestyle.
yeah, really cool. So
Yeah.
he goes out with a bunch of friends in a boat. It's like an hour ride to get there, and on July 4th, and then his friends come back from the island without him, and I'm yada yadaing a lot, right? There were other issues, but one of them was that the boat was taking on water, the bilge pump wasn't working, I guess, and so they needed to get that boat back. His friends said that he wanted to stay back on the island. He was going to get a ride back. He had met a girl that tickled his fancy, and like I don't. I was once an 18-year-old boy. I know exactly what that tickle feels like, right? So completely understand. But then he never comes back. His body is found on that island 2 days later, and the officials are saying it doesn't look like anything criminal. But his parents are going, well, he was a young black man in Mississippi, and we taught him better than this. He would
Is
have
he
stayed with everybody. What's that?
is he a swimmer?
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
specifically. I don't know. Um, he left his phone on the boat, so he was without his phone on the island. There were just some kind of weird things that kids wouldn't do. On the other hand, he was drinking. He was partying. It was a holiday. There were beautiful, probably scantily clad women all around, right? So, but his parents are asking, well, one, there was an official autopsy done, and they've had a private autopsy done. And they had a meeting with the district attorney, and the district attorney has agreed that they will both examine this young man's phone to see if anything was deleted or anything that is indicative of any kind of cover up. And then the district attorney said that he will present the case to a grand jury, but he was specific to
What?
say that that is actually standard procedure down there when there is an unexplained death. Ah, wrong button. Hold on. This is Nolan Wells. So when there's an unexplained death, apparently what I would consider an investigative grand jury is convened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the DA has said. Now, in the meantime, these parents who seem, they're the Wansleys. It's Christine and Elmore Wansley. They seem like type A personality, really driven, really good folks. They've got people like Al Sharpton in their corner. They've got people like Colin Kaepernick in their corner. They've been able to raise something like 700 grand plus uh, on a GoFundMe that was really more about, hey, help us get through this hard time because we just lost our 18-year-old boy. But so many people have gone behind them. They've raised like $750,000.
Wow.
And anyway, for me, there are some things that are suspicious, but also things that can easily be explained away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be that guy that explains things away, because there were idiots on the Ellen Greenberg case that were explaining things away. Like,
Yeah.
let's take a good, hard, close look at this and decide if indeed something did happen to this kid that was nefarious.
Alcohol is just one of the. I don't have any um like for alcohol, and I mean I used to drink. I'm no prude. I drank. I was probably an alcoholic at several different junctures in my life. But I just have no fondness for alcohol. I think I often wonder how many people across the country woke up one morning um, on a hangover and realized that they were probably going to be in prison for the rest of their life because of something that they did the night before, you know, drinking, that they don't even probably remember.
Yeah. No, well, I think you're absolutely right. I'm a person who's never had alcohol. I Well, that's not true. I was once spiked. I've never done it on purpose. Let's put it that way. I was once spiked with alcohol, and I got so sick. Such a lightweight.
On
But
purpose? Somebody do that to you on purpose?
yeah, yeah. When I was a kid, I was a teenager. But I'm also no prude. I don't begrudge a person doing what is their right to do. However, a bunch of 18-year-olds on a boat in the ocean with alcohol. uh,
They didn't have no business drinking at 18 anyway.
yeah, and they're stupid. They're teenagers. They're teenage boys. They're stupid.
Yes, very stupid. Speed, girls, you know. You think how many of them ended up going to prison or getting charged with uh, doing things with sexual with girls because they
Yeah,
was all drinking and one thing led to another, and and people will get a herd mentality. Like if there's a group of people and one person will start something. I know we can kind of link it to peer pressure, but it becomes a herd mentality.
mm-hmm.
And, I don't care what it is. If you've got enough people in your group that are all happy go lucky about something, yeah, it's just hard for somebody else for one, to not go along with it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I don't know.
One
I
of
just
the one of the
alcohol.
things that people are pointing to on this case that seems suspicious is that nobody appears to be talking. Like the kids on the boat, the kids on the island, nobody appears to be talking. However, some of them are saying they're getting death threats, and so they're not talking. They've like deleted their social media accounts. They've kind of gone into hiding because there are idiots in the world that say to themselves, "Oh, this person's guilty." Speaking of a mob mentality, right? Speaking of the herd,
Yes.
that's like
Yes.
that. These are modern day digital lynch mobs, right? That just
Yep.
want to go after people, and
Get
so
trolled. Hmm.
I would behave the same way if I were starting to like fear for my life or the life of my parents or something like that, right? I would shut up and go hide too.
They look like they've got money too. They look wealthy, and I'd say everybody on that trip was wealthy, weren't they?
Yeah, they do. I don't know. I think she is a nurse practitioner. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think they probably do have
They have
means.
access. They have access to better lawyers.
Oh yeah, like the friends and stuff. I was gonna.
Well, just any, yeah. They're anytime you have good lawyers, they're going to tell you to shut up,
Hmm.
not talk, and they're going to tell you, you know, don't be out in public, don't bring no attention to yourself, don't, delete
Which
your Facebook,
which is
delete
good
your
advice.
photos.
That
Yeah,
is
they.
that is good
I'm sure
advice.
they've. Yeah, I'm sure that they've been given all of the best advice that money can buy.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a different, you're going to see a completely different process and legal process with attorneys, from that side of the
Yeah.
track.
No, you're right. I mean, I hadn't picked up on that either, but these are kids that appear to have gone to they live in a nice area on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
This isn't like Slumville, Mississippi. This is a nice place, and parents do well. You got kids hanging out in marinas and on bow riders on barrier islands out in the
Yeah.
Gulf.
They're
Yeah.
probably spoiled rich kids. All of them.
This is another Murdaugh situation here, probably.
I swear that's what at first thought. That's what I was thinking of whenever I was talking about that,
Yeah. Well,
Some,
I,
it
I
sure.
looked at that case, and that's one of those where people do seem to have opinions, and people are drawing conclusions, and
Mm.
they're digging their heels in on those conclusions. For me, I'm sorry to be wishy-washy, but I don't have enough to draw a conclusion on in this one. He could have been murdered. He also could have just accidentally drowned because he was on an island chasing skirts, drunk. Like it could be
Well,
something in between.
there's a whole lot that you don't know there between, that's a great big, um, there's a whole lot of questions, I guess, in this case. How much do they know? Did they find his body, you
They
say?
they found his body and they did an autopsy and they did a private autopsy, but we don't know what the results are of that.
Uh, and, drowning even if it was like somebody assisted him drowning, that would be very hard to prove
Yeah.
a
You know,
witness or, you know.
the other thing I was reading about was rip currents, and I have a little bit of like tangential experience with a rip current. Like I've never been caught in a rip current, but my brother did, and my brother, like we were all strong swimmers. I was probably the weakest amongst my family, but we were always strong swimmers, especially by the time we were young adults. We were all on swim teams and water polo teams and dive teams and all that, right? So we're strong. And my brother has this story where he was at a beach that we went to on the frequent and took a girl there and was just out playing and got swept up in a rip and could not escape it and got to the point where he said to himself, okay, I give up. This is the end of my life. And then a rogue wave pushed him in. Like it was like one of those. kind of things where he's like, okay, I've spent everything trying to fight this. I even know how to fight it, but I'm done with all the strength in my body. This is the end of my life. And he just lucked out that he got pushed in. So like I think about that. Even if all those boys look like they spend a fair amount of time in the water, you know, they got swimmers' bodies. They've they've been around it their whole lives, but I mean, it's just as plausible that Nolan Wells got pulled out by a rip current and
Yeah.
couldn't fight it.
Yep. But it's very dangerous. You don't go. You just can't be drinking in water and on a boat, and you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, sad.
It is.
All right. Hey, thanks for spending some time with me today. I wanted to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about Ellen Greenberg, but
Next time.
we can do that next time. I've been chatting with her
Every
mom
Friday. Every
every
Friday.
Friday. I like this arrangement.
Me too, man.
It makes my Fridays easy.
And
And
it gets me started on my show much earlier.
yeah, so hey guys, you if you stick if you stay with us at the end of this live stream, it will forward on to Elizabeth's channel on YouTube, Hillbilly Crime, and she is linked down below. And then YouTube does this thing where we can collaborate after the live stream is over. So I'll send that same invitation to you, Elizabeth, so it'll show up on both channels. Thanks for
Okay.
coming.
No problem. Thanks
What are
for
you talking
having.
about tonight?
We're talking about the ciders.
All right. So if
Yeah,
you
and
guys want more,
I've got another case that's very similar. It was another home where the police went in and they ended up taking the children out of it. So we're going to watch that video on the show tonight.
awesome. Let me see. I saw a super chat come in. I uh, want to bring that up. Give me a second. Where is it?
And my show don't start till 8. So you still got
You
several
got some
minutes.
time.
Yeah.
Let's bring this up. See if I can. There we go. From Paula McCormick. Thank you very much for the super chat, Paula. Really appreciate that. You guys that take care of me, you guys are awesome. Stick on the channel. Elizabeth, stick with me for just 1 second while I do the outro. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for spending the whole week with me. Remember that you can catch me also on Patreon. You can catch me on Facebook, on Instagram, not on TikTok, on X, and on Spotify. If you're on the Rewatch crew and you have Spotify Premium, please, please, please go over there and watch it on Spotify because it's an easy way to support the channel. I was going to say a free way, but you're paying for it. But it certainly helps me out. I just surpassed 1,000 followers on Spotify, and I don't know, just blows me away. Seems like a little milestone, but for me, it's awesome. So thank you very much for doing that. We will be back on Monday, same time, 6 p.m. here on YouTube, and then it'll go out through the podcast world, through Spotify, and everywhere else shortly thereafter. If you ever need to reach me, go to my website, gavinfish.com. There's a little envelope that you can click and send me a message. And then we'll be back with headlines and 3 questions and good news on Monday. So there's lots to look forward to. And with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being here. I'll catch you on the next one.